Hey everyone, my name is Nicholas Salter, and welcome to the Keep It Real podcast. We're trying to keep up the pattern here with giving more video recordings, so you see my beautiful face and not just hear my luscious voice. But today I want to kind of talk about a topic that's kind of been on my heart for a while, and it's really the big reason why I started the podcast in the first place. And that's kind of help young men or even just young people in general can help find out who they are, and kind of what they stand for, and kind of help them get the results or help empower them to whatever they want to achieve in life. But really, the big thing I want to touch upon was something that's really personal to me, and that's in regards to people pleasing or nice guy syndrome, which kind of what started me on this path before in the first place. So for those that aren't really familiar with those terms, or like a lot of the online dating stuff that's kind of going on right now, basically nice guy syndrome is the way that a lot of young guys nowadays act in order to try to get a woman's attention and validation because they don't really have a strong internal sense of self. So because they don't really know who they are, what their core values are, what they want out of life, really all they know is that they don't really feel too good about themselves, and they think that a woman will fix that. And that's basically where that comes from. So they do things like trying to buy her expensive gifts, taking her on expensive dinners. When they barely even know the girl, they basically try to fake different interests or fake personalities, or basically just be inauthentic and use emotional manipulation tactics to try to get a girl to like them so they feel better about themselves. And I don't like to admit it, but there was a point in my life where I was like that myself, personally, unfortunately. But that's a great thing about growing up and having good friends and good family to help hold you accountable. And as you read and learn and gather more sources, you start figuring out your current life paradigm doesn't work. And that's really what it is. Is that I don't think that nice guys or people pleasers, they're not bad people. If anything, I think they're good guys. Just don't really kind of know what to do in regards to dating, because this stuff's not really taught. I'm not trying to be like a dating coach or anything like that myself, but I do want to help out guys, kind of stop them from going down the bad paths that they can go down if they don't really address this problem. A big reason why I really want to talk about this stuff is I notice more and more guys that they're starting to realize that they're nice guys, they're people pleasers, but then even though they have the correct diagnosis, they start getting the wrong prescriptions. Prescription like red pill or black pill ideologies, or like incel culture, or basically cultures based on just kind of emotional manipulation tactics and misogyny. That's basically what it's based in. And so even though they do figured out what's wrong, they don't really get a right solution to fix it. And that's where it comes, and that's where I'm trying to come in and help, trying to set the record straight. Not that I'm like some kind of casting over or anything myself, but I have realized that really it's not, if you struggle with women or struggle with dating, you're not having a dating problem, you're having an internal problem, dealing with self-esteem and self-respect. You probably don't have a good idea of what your core values are. You probably don't have a good idea of where you want to go in life. You probably may not even take very good care of yourself or expect other people to kind of take care of yourself for you. Right. I do believe in masculine and feminine polarities, meaning that masculine energy is more of like a container, like a bucket, and then femininity is more like kind of like the water in the bucket, kind of like letting it take hold and giving it shape, right? Or even better analogy, it's like masculinity is like the picture frame, and then femininity is like the picture that's within it, right? That there's a whole adage of men kind of build houses and women make them a home. That's kind of what it comes down to. So what women really find attractive in the guy is that a guy has a firm solidarity about who he is and what he stands for and what he's going after, right? And he actually has a life that he can invite a woman into. That's really what it comes down to. So if you have a hard time having trouble with women, it's because you're probably making them your primary focus. Again, because you don't really have a good sense of who you are and trying to use the woman to make yourself feel better. Again, I understand where it's coming from, but it's ill-founded, because the truth of the matter is that nobody, man or woman, can add or take away value from you. No one can make you better or make you worse. They can't add worth to you, and they can't take away your worth either. That's intrinsic to who you are as an individual. That's the good news. The bad news is you have to figure out who you are as an individual, especially for guys. We don't really. It's not really taught nowadays really what to be, or what kind of path you should take. Actually, what really happens when you grow up is that you kind of get told a series of tasks by various adults growing up. You complete those tasks, like, graduating elementary school, then going to high school, and then saying, hey, you got to go to college, then you go to college. Then after that, they're like, okay, good luck, you're on your own. And then you're just sitting there left wondering, like, wait, I've been told what to do for the last 20 years of my life, and now all of a sudden I had to dictate what my life is and what it means to me. Like, we're not really told how to kind of develop ourselves and our own vision for the future and where we want to be, which creates us to be kind of aimless. And with that aimlessness kind of creates a void, because like the void comes from the fact that like life is hard and life is suffering. So if you don't have anything to sustain you or fulfill you, then you're kind of getting pulled down slowly over time, or kind of getting beaten down, which I feel like is leading to a lot of the cynicism and nihilism that we see amongst young people today. So you kind of need something to help pull you up from that baseline suffering that life gives. And that's something to aspire to, something that you look forward to, something that means a lot to you, besides just hedonism and trying to feel good all the time. Because, you can do all the porn, all the video games, all the drugs, all the sex, all the alcohol. You can do all these different items, but at the end of the day, that does not fulfill the void that's internal, because you don't really know who you are and what really fulfills you in life. So that's really where it comes from. It comes from not knowing who you are, and just you have low self-esteem and lack of self-worth due to lack of that knowledge. But I bet you, once you solve that problem, a lot of the problems that you have in regards to trying to create friendships or create meaning in your life, or trying to get the relationships that you're looking for, a lot of that will kind of start falling to the wayside, because you have a sense of solidarity about yourself, and that sense of solidarity actually creates attractiveness, because people want to be around people that know who they are and what they want out of life. So really the biggest steps I could say, or I could recommend to nice guys that are kind of dealing with this problem, would be to read a book called No Mission Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover. Great book. Phenomenal. Honestly, I feel like it should be required reading for every guy growing up, because maybe not every guy deals with people pleasing on this level, but I feel like toxic shame is becoming more and more prevalent in today's society. So I feel like that it's good, just so that way even if you don't have toxic shame or you have pretty high self-esteem, it's still good for you to read, so that way you don't fall into the patterns of what low self-esteem behavior looks like. So reading that book is great. And also Dating Essentials for Men, which is another book he came out with a little bit later. That's also a great book to read as well, to help try and learn more about masculinity and kind of craft who you are as an individual. But then outside of kind of reading, I say doing different activities. So part of it is that a lot of guys think that if I just kind of get a girl, then all of a sudden all my problems will be solved. Well, that's just not true. Anyone that's been in a relationship before knows it's not true, because whenever you have a relationship with another person, you are negotiating your life with that other person. And they also have their own problems, their own baggage, or other things you have to deal with. So it's not necessarily going to be a cakewalk just by introducing another person into your life. If anything, by all means, your life gets harder. So, in a good way, like just how you might get a job, or you might even have children or have a pet. You introduce additional responsibility to your life. Doesn't mean your life gets worse. Just means that things get a little harder, because there's more things you have to consider and more things you have to care about and pay attention to. That's the trade-off. You get more fulfillment, but then also you get more responsibility that comes along with that. That's kind of how life works. So really what you want to do as a guy is figure out, okay, what kind of price do you want to pay? This kind of goes along with a lot of what Jordan Peterson talks about, how, again, what I just touched upon, you can't really have responsibility, or you can't really have fulfillment in life without some level of responsibility. So your duty as a guy is to figure out, what kind of weight can I bear, and what kind of weight fulfills me over time. So part of me is what I did was I looked at, okay, what do I really care about? Or what aspects of someone do I really respect and appreciate? So like Jordan Peterson, I respect his intelligence, his ability to articulate, his courage for standing up to for what he believes in, even if it might seem controversial. Also the fact that he's willing to be really empathetic and listening to other people and very compassionate. So I like a lot of his core values because they match mine. And I want to make sure that I embody those to the best of my ability as well. And then I also looked at the thing about when growing up, about what I wanted to do, and not to get a little geeky, but I am kind of nerdy. Like a character like Optimus Prime from Transformers, great leader, phenomenal. When I was little and I saw the Generation 1 Transformers on television screen, I saw Optimus Prime and I'm like, that's exactly who I want to be. I want to be someone that can lead to the front, that's courageous, that's compassionate, and cares about the people that he's leading. I want to fight for a good purpose, for the right cause, and also I want to be a force to be reckoned with. Every time Prime showed up to the scene, Decepticons knew what was going down. Just how it is. I always admired that about his character, or even like comic characters like Spider-Man, or like, you know, being able to overcome a variety of odds within a situation and even be able to kind of laugh at it and not take things too seriously and have this sort of confidence, even somewhat arrogance about you, of how, regardless of what happens to me, I'll make it through this thing, I'll be okay, and I'm going to win this fight, I'm going to win this battle. And he keeps on pushing forward regardless of how many times he gets knocked down. That determination, I really respect that about this character. So you can take different characters or people in your life, whether that be your parents, mentors, authors, directors, even fictional characters. Look at those aspects that really resonate with you, and there's a reason why they resonate with you, is because those are the aspects that you actually embody subconsciously, or the ones that you really want to improve upon. So by paying attention to those traits that captivate you, you can learn what your core values are, what you really want to get established, and then you start acting in line with what those core values are. So if you like someone based on their discipline and work ethic, then start being more disciplined in the things that you want to achieve, whether it be your health and your body, or you want to become more knowledgeable on different subject matters, or if you want to take on like a mentorship or leadership development role, just start thinking about different ways that you can start implementing this by, being a small group leader at your church, or go and volunteer at the Young Boys and Girls Club, or going to volunteer pick up trash on the side of the street. Just something that you can kind of start dedicating yourself towards, beyond just making a paycheck. I mean, it could be your job. If you really like doing your job, really love what you do, you could try to be more disciplined in your work and becoming better at your craft. That's great too. But I have noticed that a lot of people, they use their jobs to make a paycheck, not because they actually love what they do. So your job can be great because you need a job in order to sustain yourself, but you need to have something outside of that job, something that fulfills you if your job isn't doing that for you currently. So that way you don't get lost in a cynicism and nihilism and not have something to bring you up out of that negative emotional state. So that'd be step one, I think, for guys, would be to try to identify what are the people in your life that have traits that you really like to embody, and then start thinking about different ways that you can start embodying those steps. And once you start doing that, and once you start holding yourself accountable to that, you'll start taking steps and realizing that you're making progress, right? You're making meaningful progress in a direction that you made, that you set out for yourself, that's actually meaningful to you. And that starts making you feel better about yourself. And even for a personal example, when I moved out of my parents' house, I was scared, terrified, absolutely terrified, because I thought I had no idea what I was doing on any level. But luckily, I was able to stick to my job, ask my parents for, guidance, go to different mentors and people that I had in my life to help give me courage to go ahead and move out, get everything situated. And then I started realizing, okay, so now that I'm my own person, what do I want to do with my time outside of work? So I remember when I first started, I started going to church more. I started going to jiu-jitsu classes and started trying to take my health more seriously. I started reading more, listening to more podcasts, basically just starting educating myself on doing what I want to do now, which is in the world of podcasting, help kind of educating young people, help kind of find themselves, who they are, and what they want to accomplish out of life, and do what I feel like I was called to do, and that's empower people. And I came to that realization after thinking about who I wanted to be, and also thinking about what's the through line in my life that keeps coming back up. And what I realized is that I've always wanted to help people. Ever since I was little, I've always wanted to make them laugh, make them smile. I wanted to just be that inspirational, that courage to kind of help uplift people so they can overcome the challenges that they're experiencing in their lives. That's just the one thing that, regardless of what I've been going through in my life or how I've developed or grown up as a person, that's the one thing that stayed consistent since I was a kid to now as an adult. So I feel like that, in basis of who I am intrinsically and the people that I look up to, I decided to narrow in on who I wanted to be. And that was basically a public speaker, influencer, podcaster type to kind of help inspire and lead those down a better path. So that's kind of how I decided for myself. And the great thing about this is that your journey is going to look different from everyone else's around you. There's not necessarily a clearly defined path that you have, because you are a unique individual and you have your own unique gifts and substance that you can invite to the world. In which case, there's not really going to be a person that you can duplicate yourself exactly by, which is actually good, because that will helps you stand out and makes you unique by offering your own unique gift and not just being a cookie cutter copy of something. But that means that you're gonna have to kind of do the deep internal work of thinking critically about who you really are and what you actually want and what's really meaningful to you in life. So you may have to, write this stuff down, and you may have to read multiple books, get different perspectives, talk to a bunch of different people, travel. Like, the biggest thing I can say as a young person that might be beneficial is just get to kind of know the world. And then as you get to know the world better and learn these new perspectives, learn more about what's around you, you learn more about what yourself and what you resonate with. Like I went to the Corps Cadets at A&M, and I didn't even understand the kind of drive and ambition and the fact of how bad I wanted to be a leader until I went there. And I recognized how many other strong people that are also here, they're also driven, they're also ambitious, they're also intelligent and highly gifted, and how I want to be one of them, if not one of the best among them. It took me a little bit to get there. Those that know me know that. But at the end of the day, I stuck around because I figured that I actually do want to be a great man. And I feel like by going to just do these trials that were hard, that were difficult, that it helped me get there. And that helped me craft that character that I have today to help withstand different things that scare me and still be able to face them. Like doing this podcast, for instance. Like, trying to speak on a microphone and talk to a camera from a video and like listen to yourself speak can be very nerve-wracking, especially if we don't do it a lot. I mean, luckily we had, I shouldn't say luckily, but we had like a COVID, or basically we had the virus that kind of made people go to a more virtual setting. So we got a lot more practice at doing this stuff. But things like public speaking and putting yourself out there is scary stuff, right? But usually it's doing the scary stuff that you find the most gold and the most fulfilling aspects of life and what it has to offer. So despite this being scary, because it means a lot to me, and one of my core values is being courageous, then therefore when I'm scared, I must do it, or I must try it at the very least. And not let fear dictate my decisions, because that's an important core value for me. So I feel better about myself when I do things that are in line with those core values. And once you start kind of building that bond with yourself, you start developing that self-respect as you start seeing that I am capable of doing more things. I am capable of holding myself accountable and having discipline. I am capable of success. And once you start realizing that you are capable, you start feeling better about yourself. You start carrying yourself a little better. You start having your back straight. You may start wearing some nicer clothes. Like, you may start laughing, smiling more. Like, you have more this era of confidence and control about you as an individual. And that starts becoming more attractive to people. And the best part about this is that if you actually do it well, you realize that you don't really need a girlfriend, or you don't really need a partner. It'd be nice to have one, but you recognize that I actually enjoy my life enough to where if I don't have one, I'll be okay. And lo and behold, as soon as that happens, that's when they start rolling up. That's exactly how it works. It's when you don't need it the most is when you'll get it. That's basically how it's almost like, you have sand in your hand, you start squeezing your hand so tightly, the sand starts spilling out. When you start how to let go, more things will be able to come to you. And that's the biggest thing I think I notice with nice guys is that they're trying so hard, trying to control their external environment because they're afraid of the danger, they're afraid of the pain, they're afraid of the loneliness. So therefore, they're trying to fake who they are, so they try to keep the waters calm. But the problem is that the waters will never be calm. They won't be. So the best thing to do, instead of trying to make the ocean be something it's not, is to learn how to go with the flow and go with the tide, right? And that's the biggest thing, is like learning how to embrace the tension that life has to offer and learn how to navigate it by strengthening your character. And then therefore you become a more effective person, and then a more attractive person, because you're a person that can now hold their own physically and emotionally speaking. So that's really the biggest thing that I'd have to say. And really, as a man, you don't really have much of a choice than to go down this path of self-improvement and try and figure out who you are. Because if you choose not to go down this path, you're going to go down another path of basically being a victim, of blaming other people for where you are in life, pushing other people away with your negativity and your cynicism, going after heartbreak through heartbreak, failure after failure of relationships, because you refuse to learn the lesson that you need to learn on how, if you're not enough for yourself, you're not going to be enough for somebody else. That's just how it goes. So it's okay if you are in a state of not feeling like you're good enough. That's fine. But now the key thing is to start building that relationship with yourself by doing some of the things that I talked about, and just being in line with with your core values, being able to identify what those are by looking at people that you admire because those are the core values that you have, and then start embodying and acting out those core values and start building that relationship with yourself and have meaningful things to do in life that can sustain you through some of the pain and some of the downfalls that you suffer through just by being a human being. So that's really the big things that I want to touch on. I know that these topics, especially nowadays, unfortunately, can be somewhat taboo, even though they shouldn't be. I mean, I think there's a study that came out last year about how like 60% of young men between the ages of, I think, 20 to like early 30s are basically single, like a lot larger now than it used to be before in the past, just because I feel like we've lost the ability to interact with people, interact with the opposite sex in a meaningful way because we're just so afraid of doing it, or we've just been so discouraged from doing it, or like a combination of both. And I feel like that we need to get away from that pattern before things get worse and we start becoming even more isolated as a culture, which leads to a lot more problems, which leads to, I think, to a lot of problems that we're seeing from the suicide and the shooting front. Not to get morbid, but I think the problem is with a mindset of, if you don't have a mindset of improving, that means you essentially have default to a mindset of devolving. And that's when you get lost in the nihilism and the cynicism and the depression, because you don't have anything in life that can pull you up. You start spiraling downwards. And typically, if you go down that path long enough or far enough, you kind of start hurting yourself or you start hurting other people. That's just, I mean, if you don't basically chase the light, then you'll get engulfed in the dark, so to speak. That's why this stuff is so important, because you really don't have a choice, or I guess you do, but there's only really one right answer, in my opinion, is that you try to make your life better and become a better person from it, or you let life defeat you and then you become, like, the villain, right? So those are really just the big highlights and points I wanted to touch on today. But I hope that this was beneficial for everyone that's watching. This is one of my first videos. I've done one before, but this is my second one that I'm doing, so hopefully this is good quality and everything turns out okay. But if you listen this far, I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to doing more of these episodes more consistently, and I'm also looking forward to hopefully making a meaningful impact on people's lives. So yeah, but anyway, thank you for listening, and keep it real.